Recording. Hey guys, welcome to the podcast, the RFC, the Rebel Filmmaking Community. I'm Sean, your host, and today we have the one, but maybe not the only, because Travis Parker feels like it could be a common name, but it's certainly the one, the only Travis Parker I know who fits the multi-hyphenate vibe, because this guy is a world-renowned stunt performer and now stand-up. It's almost like opposite ends of the spectrum, but I bet we'll get into how they correlate for you. So welcome to the show, my man. I really appreciate you being here.
Of course, man. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the intro.
Yeah.
It's funny. I think about that a lot, like how many other Travis Parkers there are. And one day, if I have the income, I want to celebrate. I just want to I want to do weird shit. I want to do two things. One, I want to have a birthday party and only let people in who were born on May 5th, which is my birthday. And be like, oh, if your ID doesn't say May 5th, you
That's
can't go
amazing.
party. And it's just everyone is celebrating their birthday together. I want to do that so bad. And then
that's smart.
Yeah, one day. And the same thing with my name. Just be like, hey, I'm going to this bar. If your name's not Travis, you can't come in. It's going to be real weird.
I love that.
That one may not be as fun because there won't be as many women there. But
that's true. That's true. No, that actually this is a perfect segue because my first question, and this kind of just happened. You're my 19th guest, which is crazy to think about. Wow. But I always ask, was there a history to your name? Because I've had a lot of guests be like, well, I had to kind of change my name because it was too hard to pronounce, or there was someone in SAG with my name, so I literally had to unionize separately. Or did that ever come up for you?
So I remember this is so funny thinking about young me.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I bet.
Right?
Yeah.
So I remember before I moved to LA, in my mind I was like, is Travis Parker an exciting enough name? I was like, maybe I can do. I remember I was still in college at the time. It was like, and I drove by this road. It was like Colchester Avenue, and I was like, oh, what if my name is like? Cause my middle name is Michael. I was like, what if I change it to Michael Colchester? That sounds Hollywood.
It sure does.
Doesn't it?
Sure does. Yeah.
It sounds so Hollywood.
Yeah.
And then once I got in and I tried Travis M. Parker and just trying to make my name have pizzazz. And then I don't know when it happened, but one day I just settled with the thought and I was like, you know what? If I have pizzazz, my name doesn't need to. You know what I mean?
So I love that. That's real. That's real.
Yeah. So I love my name. I've always loved. I felt like I always rolled off the tongue really well, and I was like, yeah, I got a great name. And so I just stopped with that whole thing. It was just like, I'm just gonna be me. Yeah. Which is kind of the journey, right?
Totally. Dude. Oh, I love that. I went through a similar phase, ironically. Like, my middle name is Michael as well.
Yeah.
So we should have a party with only middle name Michaels.
Only Michael.
That would be the lamest party of the world. It would all be old guys. But no. So no, that's a trip, and you're so right. And because your name actually, it sounds like a rock star's name. It sounds like a BMX guy's name. It does have pizzazz, and you certainly do on your own. Even if your name was like Olaf, you would still be carrying some heat, buddy.
Yeah. So
let's start. I love this because you're already back where I was going to go, which is, where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in a small town called Fredericksburg, Virginia. It's one of those, we'll stop here to get gas towns, you know? It's like we're going from a big city to a big city, and halfway in between there's Fredericksburg. And
it sounds like it was like a war in the Civil War. That's what it sounds like.
Oh, definitely. Okay. There are Civil War battlefields all over the place.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, there was a bunch of those. Like when I was in school, we'd always take field trips to those. And it was like, yeah, we're gonna go to the battlefield. So, which I didn't as a kid, and this is indicative of the school system. I knew what it was, but I never really understood the gravity.
Oh man, kind of hard to until you understand the gravity of life.
That's a snapped. It's a really good point. Yeah. So, but it was always just a thing that was there. And then also, when things are just there, you're like, well, it's always here. It just is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I grew up there. I went to college at George Mason in Northern Virginia, Fairfax. And then after college, I moved out to LA back in like 2011. Yeah, late 2011, right before 20, like September 2011.
Oh.
Yeah.
And so how did art find you? Like, how did you come to it?
Like it was kind of accidental. So because like when I was younger, I again being from like a smaller ish town, you're not
Yeah.
introduced to a lot of art,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
and my parents aren't artists, right? My dad was in the military, and my mom her father was military, and so was her siblings. She wasn't, but that that mentality was there of like go to school, study like math, science, whatever, get a degree. Like it was that was always what was told to me. It was like to do those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Similar.
Yeah, and when I was in my at orientation, at freshman orientation in college, I met a guy who told me he was a dance major. And my response to him was, and they let you do that? Like they allowed you to major in dance? Like it blew
Yeah.
my mind.
Yeah.
That was
I
the
bet.
first time, that was my first introduction to like art as a profession that like I had a choice in it. And then I started just kind of doing things that I enjoyed,
Yeah.
which is like I love like tumbling and doing. I was always an athlete, so I always would do
Yeah.
those
Do you play
things.
sports in high
I did,
school? Yeah.
yeah, I did. I played football. I ran track, and then in the summers I swam for a team. So like
What
sports
what
is
what
always.
uh, what events did you do in swimming?
Oh, there's the 100 IM, the
Oof.
fly, free, and back. Fly wasn't really great. Back was my stroke, and I was pretty good at the. I was okay at the IM.
Dude,
Yeah,
backstroke, good for you. That's a hard stroke.
it
That
is.
always got me.
Yeah, somehow I did well in it, but yeah. So as far as how I found art, it was just a slow. It was like every so often, every year or so, or every few months, like I would meet someone who was an artist, and I'd be very intrigued by their whole like just things like, oh, what is this thing that you're doing that isn't math, science, and history? And then it slowly kind of took over as like, this is what I would prefer to do.
And where
I
were
don't.
you at school? Remind me.
George
Like
Mason.
college? George
George
Mason.
Mason.
Cool.
Yeah. George Mason
Oh,
University.
amazing.
Yeah. And so once I finished, like by the time I had graduated, I had fully accepted that like I didn't want to work in an office.
What'd you
I
graduate with?
uh I public relations was my degree.
Cool.
Yeah.
I have a pre-law degree. What the fuck is pre-law?
You'd be a great officer, a police officer.
Yeah,
Because they're really good at pre-law.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a fucking Minority Report. I'm a cog. Whatever, dude.
Yeah, I studied at the time. It was especially when I was about to graduate. That was when we had that big recession, like the housing market crashed. And a thing that I was aware of was that most companies, because they were downsizing, but the department that they would downsize first would be the public relations department, because they were like, well, we could just have one guy do this. And so in my mind, it was, well, once the economy comes back and they're going to reinvigorate those positions, the people who are left are going to move up, and there's going to be a vacancy that I can fill. That was my thought. I don't know how accurate it was.
Yeah.
I wasn't doing like a ton of research. It was kind of like asking around, like, but
more than most, I bet.
But lo and behold, none of that fucking mattered. So I didn't work. I haven't worked a single day in the world of PR. Not like other than like I guess for what I do for myself. Like how I exist and move through LA. Like the things that I learned were helpful, but yeah, no, I haven't made a single penny. That's just
all right. So you graduate, and then what?
Yeah. So I graduated, and then I moved home for a couple of months to save some money, and then I got an apartment with some friends. There was 4 of us. We got a 2-bedroom, moved to LA, and just never looked back.
So you graduated college. you move back home. So for me, for example, when I graduated, I think similarly, maybe a little different, but I always knew I was going to LA.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough to get a full ride to college. And so I took it. And because in the back of my mind, I was like, I could act at age 60. Like, there's no expiration date on that. But to get fully supported education and sports is like once in a lifetime, actually.
Oh yeah.
Like, you know, where you're being
for sure.
All these, educators and facilitators. So I moved home for a few weeks and then came to LA, but I always knew. So at what point were you like, I'm going to LA and I'm going to LA for X? Like, was it for stunts or stand up or?
Nah. So when I like towards the end of my college career is when, like I said, that's when I realized that like art was an option.
Yeah.
And then when I realized that, and I did stand up a couple of times, but I was still doing a lot of like tumbling and gymnastics. And I knew two things. One, if I ever hoped to be in the entertainment industry, I had to go to LA. And two, I wanted to be as far away from home as possible.
Yeah.
And yeah, and like LA, that's as far as you can get.
Yeah, literally.
Without, you know what I mean? So for me, that was like the decision. That was part of the decision to go to LA. It was just everything in me was like anything that you can hope for in your life is going to happen in LA. Right? Even if it doesn't work out, if I stay here and I work in Northern Virginia, there's no chance. Like I won't even accidentally find my way into it. You know what I mean? Like there's just, you're a product of your environment. Humans, we adapt. It's what we do, right? It's our whole thing. So I just needed to be not there. And I had done, little things and I had known some stunt guys or I didn't know them, but I knew guys from Virginia that moved to LA and got into stunts. So I was like, it's possible to get on camera. Like it's with so that's when I just made the decision, and I picked a date because I had heard or read somewhere they were like, if you want to make something happen, if you don't pick a date, it'll always be this thing that will happen in the future. So
I agree.
So I just picked a date and I said, win, lose, or draw, I go. Right?
I love that, dude.
Yeah. And so I had picked the date. We got an apartment, but we couldn't move in. It was like a week after the date that I had picked. I was like, that's fine. Like, I'm not going to be so hard on myself. And I'm like, no, I have to go out on the 13th, not the 23rd. I was like, nah, it's cool. I'll wait a few days.
Yeah. I call those loose targets nowadays. I'm like, September 8th, knowing it could be September 13th, but at least I have a date I'm aiming at. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny. I tell a lot of people that, and it's the ones that listen, you see it. And then the ones that don't, you're just like, Like I have friends that still live on the East Coast that want to come to LA.
Me too, dude. It's crazy. Yep.
And dude, and I'm like, dude, I live alone. Come stay with me. I'll help you get on your feet. I've helped so many people get on their feet that like it's just like habit, because I know what it's like to like need help but not know how to get it or where to get it from.
Or even how to ask.
Right? So a thing that's really important to me is I want to always be the friend that I always wish I had in my life during certain moments.
That's really lovely, dude.
Yeah, and so that's the way that I try to think, and that helps me be more understanding and patient and grateful to everything. So it's man. But moving to LA was fucking.
How'd you get to this place? Because you're describing more of like a mindset or a spiritual place. Did you go through traditional modalities of therapy, or because it sounds like, if I may peel back to even the gymnastics, like tumbling, like for me, when you said that, I got bucked. I was like, dude, I don't think I would have been secure enough in my masculinity or whatever, my
Yeah.
humanness, to go tumble because of my perception of it.
Oh,
And the fact that you're
yeah.
just like, yeah, like, and maybe you had been doing gymnastics your whole life and I didn't pick that
No,
up,
no, no,
but
no, no.
it's so
So,
fascinating to me. Sounds like
so
security, yeah.
when, because there are certain things in my life that I know that I want. Like, and once I know that I want something, nothing else matters.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So like
Mm-hmm.
with tumbling, it was a thing that I had seen on the internet. There was this old video called Friday Night Madness where these guys were in a gym and they were just doing flips. And it was just a bunch of dudes. I think that's the thing. I think as a kid maybe gymnastics was like a female thing, but
Mm-hmm.
as I got older and I saw what male gymnasts one looked like,
Yeah.
and two, let me turn this off. And
No
two,
worries.
yeah, like I saw what they looked like and I saw what they could do, and I was just like, there's no part of that that I don't want.
Yeah, they're
Like
so jacked. Oh my god.
they're in such great shape and they
Yeah.
can do cool shit.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so rad.
Like levers and
Yeah.
things. Oh my
Oh
god.
man. And so I found some friends and so that's how I got into that world. But as far as like my mentality on things, I've always been very good at listening to people who've come before me,
Mm.
especially when they complain or are upset about things. And one of the things that like when I was a kid, one of the things that I heard a lot was it's like, "Oh, you're so young and if you only knew how young you were and what that means."
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't and you can't, but I also knew that like, okay, well once this is gone, apparently it's a big
Mm-hmm.
deal.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is,
Yeah.
but it's like, so in my youth, I very much was like, I'm young and I should fully take advantage of this, right? Like, I
Mm.
should fully. So, even in college, like, I would sleepless nights, I'd go out, and I was like, there's no other time in my life where I'm going to be able to stay up till 5 in the morning partying, go to class at 7 a.m.,
Yeah.
and then still do a
Absolutely.
whole, like, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't happen when you get older. Not that I know from experience, because that's what everyone is telling me. Why would I
Yeah.
not listen to them?
Yeah.
So so the things that I wanted to do, and like regret is a huge thing that I hear that people like
Mm-hmm.
can't live, because that's the worst, being 70 and regretting that you never did the things that you wanted to in your life. So there's a version. There's actually I call it the three Travises. This is how my mind operates most of the time when it comes to me navigating through life. There's past Travis, present Travis, and future Travis, and the three of them work together to like help each other. So if I'm at a restaurant and I'm ordering food, and I know that later tonight I'm going to be up late playing video games, smoking weed, I'm going to order extra for future Travis because
Hmm.
he is going to love that I've got calamari in the fridge, right?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I'll do things like that, and it helps. Recently, actually, I realized that it's not so much that like there are three Travises, but it's that like that helps me understand what I really want in my core, right?
Mm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
if I'm thinking about future Travis and what he would regret now, what he would regret is what I actually want to do. And the
Yeah.
world and all my stuff in my head is what's telling me that I can or can't or should or shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is so, as far as my career is concerned, so I've been doing stunts for the last 12 years and I've had a blast. Like, it is one of the most exciting jobs that I could have ever hoped for. I get to travel the world, meet some of the coolest people, meet my heroes, and and get paid really well. And it's, you know, I can't really put into words how much I have enjoyed being a stuntman for 12 years. But at the same time, you're an athlete, right?
Mm.
And the reality
Mm-hmm.
of being an athlete is there's a limit.
Yeah, I
There's a
wanted to
day.
ask you about shelf life, so to speak.
Yeah.
But
So yeah, there's a day when your body betrays you, right? Not intentionally. I mean, it's not really betraying because half of the time it's because you didn't take care of it.
That's what I agree.
Yeah, right. So I won't say it's betrayal because that makes it feel like because I have agency over it. But it's just like it deteriorates. It's a cruel, and it's honestly it's really cruel because the older you get and the more experience you get, the better you get at doing things.
That's right. Your mind is going and your body is going.
And you're right. And right now I'm at this like sweet spot where I can perform at a level that is the same as people who are way more in shape than me. But just because I know all the tricks. I know how to conserve energy. I can do a fight scene. Like I just finished a movie in London and we were doing this fight scene and everyone there was younger than me. And they were all in crazy shape. And I was just like, oh, this is gonna be awful. But we would do take after take after take, and they're just as winded as I am, if not more. And I was like, oh, this is nice.
Yeah.
Because I know what I'm doing now. But like if I had what I have here and my 26-year-old body, that would be disgusting. That would not be fair. That would be so unfair. But with that, I also realized that if wherever I'm gonna go next in my career, I have to start paving the way for that now. I can't wait until I'm too old. Yeah. I have to, so that way by the time that like I have to hang up my stuntman cape, it's fine. You know what I mean? Yeah. So
that makes a lot of sense. So you almost see it nowadays in like the UFC. You could tell fighters who are, a few years away from aging out, so to speak, they're starting to commentate and be on the shows more because they understand that. Well, they got to transition.
You gotta, because the money's got, and especially if this is all if it's all you know. Yeah. Right?
Do you have aspirations to go second unit direct eventually? Like get up that, like what's the sort of corporate hierarchy structure? Like where would you go? Is it stunt coordinator, then blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
So it goes, so you go from performer, depending on what your skill set is, because you can go into choreographer, like, because I do a lot of fights. So for someone like me, my next typical path would go from performer to choreographer to assistant coordinator to coordinator, then to hopefully second unit director. And now stuntmen are directing, as with like Chad and like, with John Wick and then J.J. Perry with Day Shift. So they're giving stuntmen the reins, which is great because, I mean, who better to fucking direct than guys who've lived it their whole life.
I agree. My buddy's mentor is Garrett Warren.
Oh, yeah.
And like that guy's sequences are amazing.
Yeah,
amazing.
Crazy, right? Yeah. Crazy. So, but for me, the thing is like, and I talk to a lot of young performers. Anytime I talk to a young performer, the first question I ask them is, what do you want to do when you can't perform anymore? Right? It's a question that I wish I was asked when I was 24. Because when I came in, my only focus was performing. That's all I ever thought. It was like, oh, I'll just perform. Sense. I never thought about what came after because at that time, it was just so far away. And had I been asked that question then, and I could have maybe been better prepared for it. But there's a hard thing in the stunt community where, because there are people who want to like do stunts to help their acting career or to like get in front of people, and they're not really in it. And so because of that, anytime that you mention you want to do anything that's not stunts, you get looked at like, oh, well, you're not a stunt guy.
Like a pariah.
Yeah. And it's hard. It's really hard because I remember, because I've always, like, comedy has always been in the back of my mind. It's never left me. I've been writing, I've got pages and notebooks and notes on my phone for years.
You've always been so funny and had such a good comedic presence as long as I've known you, so it makes sense.
Yeah, and thank you. And, but because I was like, well, if I entertain this, then I won't be seen as a real stuntman, and I can't then do this thing. So I kind of pushed it all away and just hyper-focused on stunts, which I mean, paid dividends. You know, I've had a wonderful career. I've doubled Idris Elba, Will Smith, Jamie Foxx. Like I've met Denzel Washington. I've met almost all of my heroes, working in this business.
Did you double Chadwick?
I did. I also doubled Chadwick
because I'm looking at your movies here. I have
Yeah.
notes for everybody, and
Oh yeah,
I was just like, 21 Bridges. I'm like, I love that movie and that movie. It's amazing, man.
yeah, yeah. I got to meet like Seth MacFarlane, although I was in a Godzilla costume, so I don't. So it's like kind of got to meet him, but like, but no, it's like again, I can't speak enough on how much I loved it, but there's a piece of me that wishes I had done more, but then I have to remember that I did what I thought was best with what information I had.
Yeah.
And I can't get down on myself for that. It's easy to, and I kind of will at times. I have to talk myself out of it. Be like, no. It's okay. Also, now that I'm transitioning into comedy, which is a crazy fucking like, man, that whole journey has been wild.
Yeah.
Go
Absolutely. No, I bet. I'm just thinking because I follow comedy and comedians so much, and I want to get to that, but I want to go through some of these and just I'm really curious. Like you said, at 24 things started shifting. So was there a gap where just things weren't happening, or did you get to LA and have one of those stories where it was kind of just like, oh shit, this happened. Like, when was your first big moment? Like, holy shit, I'm on the set of fill in the blank sort of thing.
Oh, my first big moment. It was, well, there's two. So there's like a mini one, and then there's like the big one. So the mini one was I was in the first Purge.
Oh shit! The Ethan Hawke one.
Yeah. So they had security camera footage that they were doing, and so they brought in guys just to do like, it's I think at the beginning of the movie where they flash through a bunch of different security cameras, and so I went in and did that. But I remember I got the call, and I had only been doing like YouTube stuff, and I think the most I'd ever made was like $100. Wow. And this guy calls me and he's like, "Hey man, are you busy? Can you come in right now and help us film this stuff? I can only pay you like $500. I hope that's okay." And
you're like you play right cool. There. Yeah.
Like you play it cool. You're like, "Oh yeah, man, no problem. I'll be there." Hang up the phone. I'm like, "I'm about to make $500. Are you fucking kidding me? That's my whole rent. That's all of my rent in a day." Yeah. I was like, "Fuck yeah, I'll be right there." And I hustled over, and it was like this weird, like trying to figure it out. There was a scene I remember where I got jumped by like 4 dudes. And I didn't know what I was doing, so like, just put a bunch of pads on, they're just gonna hit you. And then one of the dudes just like clocked me in the face, and I almost blacked out. It was like this whole fucking crazy thing. And then I got a paycheck for $500, and I was like, well, this is amazing. This is crazy. This is my whole month. This is a month of work that I needed to do that's now done, and I can now like, So that was big, and then
wait, before you get into the next one, let me share a story about that movie, because I have a story.
Do you?
Yeah, I auditioned. So this is like my first big audition. The first audition, I'm in the waiting room, and I'm like, I fucking recognize that guy and that guy and that guy. It was like one of the villains.
Yeah.
It might have even been the main villain. Like, I don't know how I got this right. Yeah. And so the original audition, the original character, he's dressed in a pig outfit. Like, imagine like pink, like bikini top, pig nose, and pigtails, right? And it's like a 2-page monologue. Like, I've never seen an audition like this. It's straight single spaced speech. It's like the guy who shows up at Ethan's house and he's like, but it's his whole, that's how they auditioned him, was just one big speech. And so it's like a really frenetic day. I'm not checking my emails. And I get to the audition, and I bought the kit. I bought the hair, the pigtails, the nose. I have a pink tank top on. I'm wearing pink shorts in the room, in the audition room. And I'm looking around, and I'm noticing no one else is dressed like me. Like, and not just they're not dressed like me, they're dressed different. They're dressed in suits or whatever he ends up wearing in the actual movie. It's more that ballpark. And I'm like looking at my phone, and my manager was like they changed the last minute, but I was like 2 or 3 hours ago. I just fucking missed it. It had changed the wardrobe to a suit instead of the pig outfit. So now I'm like, I'm fucking here. I'm doing it, right? But I'm so in my I'm in my throat because this is also so long ago. I didn't belong in this audition room. I was not ready for it.
You must have been so green.
Yeah, I was not ready for it. I just had I had a good manager for like 2 weeks, sort of thing. And I get in, and I remember the casting director was in this really long rectangle room. I'd never seen anything like it. He was like beyond, like down a hallway, but it was just him in this room, and there was like TV monitors in front of him, so I kind of had to be like to make eye contact. And I walked in, and he was also the most brutal, right? Like, I'm not blaming him. It was just like probably a long fucking day, whatever. But he was just like, "Yep, what's up? Okay, let's do." Oh, he's like, "Let me stop you." He's like, "Are you?" Because I'm putting on the pig nose and shit. And he's like, "What are you doing? Didn't you get the email?" And I was like, "Nah." And he's like, "Okay, well, you don't need any of that." And so that I'm again so green that really throws me.
Yeah.
And so I'm in my head so bad. I just start the audition as he's like, "Go." And 2 lines into this, like, I think it's like a 2.5 minute speech, I'm already just like that feeling, that white hot awareness feeling, where you're just like, God damn it. I'm so I didn't get the call back, but that is one of my favorite audition horror stories. And it was about the Purge, which was named something else at the time, but so I just wanted to share that one with you.
Oh, dude, that's amazing. But that's how it, like, sometimes that's just fucking how it goes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've had some bad ones. All right, so that was I get why that makes total sense. I've had that moment with acting. So now, like, the big one, I guess, in a sense, for it's a little starstruck.
So the first big one that I can remember was Batman vs Superman, I think.
Oh, Zack Snyder.
Yeah, I think that. Wait, was that before? Hold on. Let me check my IMDb. So I can check the dates on which one came first. I'm pretty sure that it was that one. It was Batman vs Superman. But I mean, that's the first one that like sits with me. Just also because I'm a big fan as well. I'm a huge nerd. So like I was like, I'm doing DC comic book shit. This is crazy.
Dude, that movie is. I mean, I love Zack Snyder's Batman universe personally.
It's okay.
I love it.
No. No. It wasn't that. There was one before that.
Which one?
It was Planet of the Apes.
Oh, which one was
the
that?
Second one. The second one. Dawn of Planet of the Apes.
Dude, those movies are good. I just rewatched them like 6 months ago or so.
Yeah. Oh no, they're so good. Andy Serkis is a genius. And
he really is.
Especially that first one with James Franco. That shit.
Yeah.
Man, I remember watching that in the theater and just getting chills in the theater. It was so good.
Yeah. It's one of the few that like outperforms the original. And remakes.
Yes. So, and I'll explain why I got those two confused. There's a connecting factor in those. So Dawn of Planet of the Apes, I was, getting by, right? I was getting by, and I just, in my mind, I was like, I just don't have to call my parents and ask for like money. You know what I mean? Like for rent. I want to be able to, you're my first time. I'm out of Virginia, and I remember I was struggling, and I was getting to a point where I was like, if I don't do something soon, like I'm not gonna have money for rent.
Were they supportive?
Very. My parents have always been very supportive. My
amazing.
Yeah, I got lucky in how they looked at. They both realized that we didn't ask to be here, so they can't, like, we, at the very least they can do is let us do whatever we want. You know
That's
what I mean?
brilliant.
Yeah. Like,
Kudos, Parkers.
yeah, my parents were really, really, really great in that. And so anything that I wanted to do, it was just like, their whole thing was just like, just do it well. That's it. Like, as long as you have your ducks in a row, whatever it is you want to do, do. So I remember I'd flown home to visit them, and while I was there, one of my friends, who is one of the best stuntmen in the business, he goes by Spider,
Dope.
is just, he's like a man. If if he wasn't, so he gets really weird with dialogue, but if it wasn't for that, he'd be one of the greatest actors on the planet, because
Dope.
watching him drop into characters, it's like, it's full 100% like 6-year-old level immersion, where it's like, so he was on Planet of the Apes playing one of the, he was doubling Koba, who was the main villain ape, and then would just do random ape stuff. But like,
so you guys are in tracking suits, or
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. They were in they had gray suits on with the dots, and they would just do everything on set, and then they would just layer it in. The guys that did the CGI for that are so good. Also, funny story, recently I just watched Chimp Empire on Netflix.
I've seen it. I haven't watched it, but I've seen the title.
Which one, I'm upset it's not called Chimpire. I felt that was a great portmanteau that they missed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right? I was like, why would you not call it Chimpire? This is so ridiculous. That's such a great name. I'm so mad. And but I remember I was watching it, and while I was watching this documentary, I was like, man, the guys on Planet of the Apes did a much better job at CGI than I thought, because the apes in this documentary look just like those, but it's just apes look so close to us that they just always, to me, they just always look fake. Like when they're on TV, it's like, no, that's not real, but it is.
I know, dude.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing.
Trip.
So like with Planet of the Apes, like when I was like, oh, I mean, it's good, but it still looks a bit CGI. It doesn't. It's just me. It's just great. Like the CGI is just fantastic.
Dude, I just saw gorillas and apes and monkeys at the Chicago Zoo for the first time, because they have all of them. And I was like, are these fuckers real?
Right?
Like, what is this?
It's like it's like this
trip.
Could be a dude in a costume. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, they're so big. It's wild. Okay, so you're scrapping.
I'm scrapping. I go home to visit my family. Spider calls me. He's like, hey, we're in Louisiana shooting this movie. Why don't you, I was like, you're not doing anything in LA. Just come stay in my hotel with me, and then we'll just see about getting you on the film. And
wow, that's a good friend.
A great friend. A great friend. And I was like, yeah, I mean, it's better than what I'm doing now. Like, I would go back to LA, and I don't have a plan there either, so why not? So I flew down. I stayed with him for like a month. Like a while. Like, he was in a hotel room, and then they got an apartment, and then I just stayed in the apartment, and then I got like 3 weeks on, and it paid. Like, I was like, cool. And this was at like a stunt rate, so I was making what was it back then? It was like $2,000 a week or some shit, you know. Which was, so like 3 weeks of that, I was like, oh my god, this is
the life.
But being on those sets, because there was Gary Oldman was on that film, and seeing Andy Serkis and all these other people and hanging out with these actors, it was a thing that I was instantly, I was in. I was like, if I had any question about wanting to do this, it's gone. And the reason why I was trying to remember if it was this or Batman vs Superman first, because Spider called me because he was on Batman vs Superman, and he was he knew the coordinator very well and put me in, and also got me on that film like a year or so later. So I couldn't remember what the order was now, but yeah, so it was Apes and then Superman. So that was like my first time really being like in it, and then it just kept, it just kept going. It starts slow, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, you're working more than you're not. And it's great feeling.
Are there, I mean, of course there are, but I want to hear it from your perspective, like specialities, like
Mm-hmm.
because you're not necessarily going to be stunt driving and the fight guy and the high
Yeah.
rise guy. I don't
So
know.
in the States, because it's slightly different in the UK, but so for us, it's yeah, typically you're a specialist. They're like fight specialists, driving specialists, but you ideally it's you want to know as much about everything as you can,
Mm,
you know. But
mm-hmm.
to be an, I mean, but to be an expert takes years,
Yeah.
right? To be an like the fight guys, they've been, I mean, they were martial artists long before they were stuntmen. You know, they have a lifetime
Yeah.
of martial arts under their belt, or boxing, or whatever it may be. Same thing with the drivers. Like the driving guys have been doing it since they were, kids,
Yeah. Yeah.
effectively. Yeah. So it I know for me, like I never wanted to drive. It was never my. I hated it. I've done it a few times. I've done a couple of sequences where I've done little driving things here and there, and I always hate it. I just
Mm,
don't. I don't find enjoyment in it, and most of my life has been trying to just do the things that I enjoy. If I hate doing it, why am I doing it? Kind of
yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
Especially if I have a choice in the matter. There's certain things in life you got to do, right? Like you got to pay taxes, you got to do certain things. So, but with that, I'm like, yeah, I don't fucking, I never, I could probably have a much more lucrative and definitely a longer career if I got into
Mm,
driving, but I would just be unhappy.
mm,
And that to me, no amount of money. I've seen people unhappy in their careers and live a life of hate, like of hating their job, but still doing it. I've seen
yeah.
people do that, and I
Yeah.
just knew I was never gonna be that guy.
Dude, kudos.
Yeah,
Kudos. Bro, when I first moved to LA, and this is all love to these guys, we only know what we know at the time, but
yeah.
I had friends who literally were like, "What the fuck are you doing? Like,
Mm,
what do you think? What are you
yeah,
thinking? You're actually doing it?" Because I talked about it in
yeah,
college, not profusely, but if the future came up,
yeah. Like you'd
you know,
mention it.
yeah, I'd be like,
Yeah,
"I'm going to LA to act," and people would be like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, right." And then I did it, and my friends, a couple, not everybody, I had some really ultra supportive friends, but we're like, "What the fuck?" And now
yeah.
they're the same guys who are like, "God damn, I'm so proud of you. Like
You
you went
did it,
after
man.
you went after what you wanted.
Yeah.
Instead of life kind of taking you, you went to it."
I have a question. I have a question
Hmm.
for you because this is the
Hmm.
thing that I find has it's it's tough, but also like it's gonna sound like champagne problems, but I'm just gonna come out. I'm gonna come
No.
out. So for me, I remember when I was moving out to LA, and usually this has happened. This is actually happening now with comedy, but I it's nice because I have a lot of people supporting me, but sometimes I have people who are like too supportive. They're like, "Oh, you're gonna be the best," and I'm sure you're
Mm-hmm.
already amazing, and it
Mm-hmm.
puts a lot of pressure to be like, "Oh, well, everybody is telling me that I'm going to be amazing, so now I have to be."
Mm-hmm.
And part of me is like, I wish more people told me I was gonna fail, so I could just be like, "Yeah, fuck you." But
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't know. It's a weird thing. It's a weird thing because especially with my transition into comedy now, there's been so many people like, "Oh, you're hilarious," and you're going to be so great. And I'm like, but stand up is so very different than being funny and just like with your friends. It's so different. And I
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of like fear, and I mean, none of it's going to stop me. I'm going to do it regardless. But it's just a thing that I've noticed. Did you ever feel any of that, or that ever happen with you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And what I found for me is I was like, if we want to use your three Travis's example to sort of
Yeah.
frame this, I would be split between two Seans,
Mm.
which is they're telling me presently you're gonna do great. I immediately don't hear them for what they're saying and jump to the future
Yeah.
instead of being like, oh, they're trying to compliment me in the best way they can. This is
Mm.
the best of their ability.
Yeah.
And by me jumping to the future, not only did I fuck you to them, I actually fuck you to me because they're actually just showing me a little bit of love. And that's what I had to come to,
Yeah.
you know, because I would feel the same thing. And also, it took me a while to realize, like, that's a fucking droplet of a droplet of a droplet of a droplet. Like, the
Yeah.
percentage of people in our lives versus the audiences we're trying to impact.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm
Yeah.
like really thankful for those supporters, and especially because it can be vulnerable to share, especially in the community I'm from, like for another
Yeah.
man to tell me like, hey, like you're fucking doing it, man. Like
Yeah.
they had
Yeah.
to reveal something, and I sort of like took the onus off myself in those moments because I learned maybe a year or two ago, and you know, I think you know this, but I've been doing hardcore therapy, family
Mm-hmm.
therapy, group therapy. I'm on a men's team. I needed to.
Yeah.
And what I learned is like the comp when you receive a compliment in a way, it's not about you. Because what I used to do when someone complimented me, I'd go like this, like, "Oh, thanks," and my therapist was like, "Okay, Sean, compliment me because you're really good at it. I know you get some satisfaction to compliment."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, hey, Suzanne, you're an amazing therapist," and she went, "Oh, thanks." And then she's like, "Okay, let's do it again." I'm like, "Hey, Suzanne, you're an amazing therapist," and she's like, "Thank you. I work really hard at it. Appreciate you." Right. And immediately I felt just like, oh, I got acknowledged in that.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel like bragging, you know, which was my worry always is if I acknowledged a compliment, I'm being braggy. And
That's the nail on the head. Yeah, I feel that deeply. The like not wanting to be overly. It stems from when I was a kid. I had my best friend once called me a show off, right? And I was he was my best friend, and I was what 8, 9 years old, and I just remember I felt that to my like I can feel how I felt then right
yeah,
now,
dude,
and
that affected you. I'm sorry that happened, dude.
yeah, and ever since then, you know, and also like any time that I would do things that I would, you know, that I would want to do just because I would want to do them. It was a lot of like, well, you can't do that here, and you can't do that now, and you can't do that. It's like you got to do the things you're supposed to do, and so it just there's a part of me that is like trying to be myself, but in a way that the world accepts it. Right? There's a part of me that's there, and I'm really trying to step out of it and understanding that like I can just be me and fuck everything else.
Yeah, because it's not what this is just what I'm realizing, right?
Yeah.
Is like it's not the world, it's my world.
Yeah.
So there is no separation because I mean,
Outside of
literally, it's your world, and literally, it's my world.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is almost no the world. It's a weird concept, but
Yeah, I
that's how
have
I find it.
It's funny because I actually like I was thinking about this one day because I smoke a lot of weed alone, so I just think I just sit here just think for hours. But one of the things that I thought about was it's like the multiverse theory, but the theory is that every person exists within their own universe, and those are the parallel universes. It's like, yeah, you have yours, I have mine because how I perceive it, interpret it. I mean, you know, and most everything about the world that we live in outside of like scientific like law is subjective.
Yeah.
Which means it doesn't really exist. So
I know. It's a trip. I think about the multiverse I love that we're bringing this up, dude, because we can go as deep as you want, baby.
Yeah.
I think about it as in terms of our soul is broader than our body. So, like, our soul's not within us, we're within our soul. And imagine it like a sphere. And so, you know, in the Marvel universe, like, the multiverse is parallel because they have to kind of show it to you.
Yeah.
But I think it's a sphere of decision making that's running at a trillion second, you know, clip. Like it's the highest processing speed in the world, the universe, literally. So I move my arm right. Now all the other possibilities disappeared from that sphere in that 1 millisecond. But there's constantly all these options of universes around us.
Oh yeah.
And so it's just like whatever way we go, we leave the other, so to speak. And it just keeps reshaping in this sphere of choice. And that's kind of how I look at, like, they're all possible right here. I could move straight
You could do,
behind me.
yeah, I could do literally anything in this
Yeah.
moment, and it's all possible until it's real.
That's right. Until it's realized. Yeah.
Or until it happens anyway. Yeah. Which is why that's actually part of the reason, like, that kind of mentality is why, or has helped me to let go of my past. And, like, especially if I have anything that I'm like, well, if I had done this and then this, is because there are every moment the entire universe exists simultaneously, right? And as you were saying, with your sphere of, like, anything can happen, if I'm going to try and guess what could have happened if I made one different decision, there are also an infinite amount of other things that could have also happened differently. Like, I can't pretend to be like, if I had done this, this would have happened. I don't know that. I can't know that. The only thing I can know is what did happen. And so I just have to take what happened and then use that to move forward, and not sit with the, like, what could have, what possibly did. A thing that I've been working with a lot is, I realize that I have I think a lot of people probably feel this way as well, but a desire to feel special, right? Like a want, but my understanding of the universe is such that I know that I'm not, right? I know that, like, we're one, like, in anything that I can feel, somebody has already felt, right? It like, and also on the larger scale, in the eyes of the universe, none of it matters, right? In the eyes of the entirety of the universe, none of this matters. So with those two opposed,
or it all matters.
Well, this is the thing. This is what I have come to realize very recently, is that two things. One, the only things that matter are what I choose. And it's because, like, I can play video games all day and they can have a great time. I can go do a set and kill it at an open mic and have equally as great of a time. But they're so different that the only reason I can enjoy them equally is because I'm deciding to enjoy them. Right? All the things that I enjoy in my life, I enjoy them because I enjoy them. It has nothing to do with them inherently. Nothing to do with what they are inherently. Because somebody could sit in front of a PlayStation and just hate it.
Yeah,
just
totally.
Fucking, but I don't. So, that allows me to give meaning to anything. I can do a Rubik's Cube for 6 hours and not feel like I wasted my life because it meant something to me. And that's all that really matters.
I love that. I love this conversation because I do think about this, and what helped me sort of articulate, because I have to bring myself to awareness before I can act. And then if you don't act and you have awareness, that's called madness, because you're aware but you're not moving. And so you got to move once you get the awareness. And so what I realized, because I'm like, dude, it's annoying sometimes. I'm like, people are like, what do you do? And I'm like, well, truthfully, in the last 2 years, I've been paid professionally to direct, write, produce, and act on different projects, not the same one. And so I'm like, I'm a filmmaker. I'm this and that. And I'm not ashamed of it anymore. Sometimes, it's still a little tricky to say, but I'm just like, I know what each of those do for me.
Yeah.
Like acting, I know why I like it. Specifically, writing. So, like, acting, that's catharsis. I'm being rewarded because it's a reward system. Great take, right? We're using that take. That's inherently a reward for feelings I wasn't allowed to utilize as a child. And so, like, I know that's that. Writing is me, unadulterated. Like, that's my thoughts on the page. And if I'm collaborating, then it's our thoughts.
Yeah.
If I'm producing, that's my OCD, managerial, like, leadership capacity. Directors, like, visionary. Like, ooh, this feels, and that being aware of those things helps me lean into them further. So I wonder if maybe when you're considering, like, stunt and stand-up, if you know why you like them specifically or this similarly, then that might even help you stand into those choices even further, because I think it's important that you break this old school paradigm. I'm not at the sacrifice of your career or anything, but like it's bullshit that you can do something else that you
Oh man,
passionately love.
yeah, it is, and it's funny because it's not like it's also like not just in the stunt community. Also, like most of Hollywood considers stuntmen just like dumb.
Yeah, I was gonna ask,
jocks.
do you think you guys should have like an Oscars? Because I do.
Oh,
Like
well,
or something
yeah.
similar.
So, I mean, as far as the Oscars is concerned, I feel two ways about it. One, I don't really care about the Oscars, right?
Same.
Yeah,
Just like fill in
right.
the blank, I
Just,
guess.
yeah,
But
like as a
some
whole,
sort of acknowledgement. God damn.
yeah, it is because yeah, it's just one of those things. I'm like, there are people who like Jim Carrey doesn't have an Oscar, and it's a travesty, right? Like, I've never seen Jim Carrey not kill a role.
Yeah.
Like he is Stanley Ipkiss. He is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I just watched Sonic the Hedgehog like flippantly,
Bro,
and I was blown away.
he's he's the fact that he just doesn't even have like any Oscar for like I give a shit less about the Oscars right now. However, the thing about it is, it's like, one, well, if you're gonna recognize people, you should recognize everyone. Right? Like, why not?
Yeah, it is so weird.
Yeah, it's like you give like best score, like the categories that they have, especially the smaller ones that they give to. I'm just like, what the?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I guess that's fine. But the other thing is that I know from being, on big films, when department heads or people who have Oscars, they also command more respect as a whole. They get like what they say happens more often just because it's like, well, they've got an Oscar, so like you kind of can't tell them, right? And yeah, and it's just like, yeah, that should also be within the stunt community. Like, we should be able to be like, no, we're Oscar award-winning stunt. I don't mean like the whole. I just meant like the coordinator should get one, or the choreographer should get one.
Totally. Like, think about Mad Max Fury Road. I'm
dude,
like, what the fuck?
Stunts as a whole, again, we like do not get enough credit because a few things. One, what was the last billion-dollar film that had zero stunts in it? It's a trick question because there are none. There are none. There are none. There are none. So even monetarily, it's like, what are you? You need us.
Yeah.
And then additionally, we are the only department in a production that has to work with every other department. Right? Set deck and costumes do not need to talk ever. However, as the stunt department, I need to talk to costumes and wardrobe. I need to talk to set deck. I need to talk to lighting. I need to talk to literally everybody because what we are doing involves everyone.
Wow. And, I never thought about that. You're so right, obviously.
Fuck. Yeah. And it's like, I think we're underpaid. People are like, oh, but you make great money. I'm like, yes, but how many jobs are there where every time you do your job, it means you can do it for less time?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you guys have a disability of any kind when you retire, or is there in the pension at all?
We're SAG, so it's the SAG shit.
Same shit, really?
Same shit, yeah.
Wow.
But like I look at these movies, and there are some great action films that have great actors and actresses in them, but honestly, they're replaceable. The action isn't.
Yeah.
Right. And yet I don't see stunt coordinators making $500,000 or $1 million on a film, or like the lead double is, like the lead double in a main action film may be on camera more than the actor is. And yet the actor's making $5 million and the lead double will make maybe 120,000, right? Which again, I am not saying we do not make good money. I have been afforded things in my life that I could not have dreamed of. I have a very comfortable life and I'm very happy. However, it doesn't mean things can't get better.
No,
it doesn't mean that they shouldn't.
All tides rise all ships, or whatever it is.
Right?
Yeah, so, seriously. I agree.
But, it is also the way that we're treated. it also feels like we'd be the first to go if
Mm-hmm.
things happen. They'd be like, all right, well, if you guys want to cause this much of a fuss, I think a lot of people in the stunt community feel that way. That like if we make too many waves, they'll take us out of the water. Right?
That
Yeah.
sucks, but I know.
But
what you
then,
mean,
but then their water would have no waves, and that shit's boring.
Yeah, 100%.
Like it's cool if you want to go fishing, but if you want to go wakeboarding, it's boring as fuck.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like you have to make waves to fucking so. But yeah, so that's how I feel about stunts and the Oscars and oh yeah, there was a greater point that I was making. It was with that. So because of how we're looked at and how we're kind of not seen as like integral, if we want to transition out, most of the time it's like no, you just do this, just do your stunt thing, just go, just do that. Like it, the line that the people before me have made to go into second directing and now directing is wonderful for people who want to do that, but not every stunt performer gets in it with dreams of being a director. Right? Some performers get in with just dreams of being on camera. And it's like, you'll let a musician, you'll give him an acting role, right? And be like, oh, it's fine because he's got fans and but then he's like trash. But then you have a stunt performer who is a talented actor and could do the role, but you're like, no. Like there should be there should be way more stunt performers who are also actors and taken seriously than there are. They're like the last one was Jackie Chan.
Wow,
right?
That's crazy to think about.
Yeah, like when was the last time there was someone who came up as a stuntman and then became an actor and then became like a world-renowned actor?
No one. Jackie Chan, I guess.
You know what I mean? Like again, there may be somebody watching this who's like, you're forgetting about Steven. I'm like, okay, cool. I don't
sure.
But still the point is that like I don't know. You know what I mean? Like it's not easily like me pulling Jackie Chan, that's easy because it's like of course everybody knows that. Like that, he got punched in the face by Bruce Lee when he was a stuntman. And it's like, oh, did Bruce Lee transfer his energy into Jackie with his fist? Maybe.
Yeah.
Like, so, but what I would love to have happen is if I can do this, if I can do what I'm doing and I can do it so well that the whole industry is like, there's a whole area that we haven't been looking at the right way, and now we should look at it.
Yeah.
I would love for that to happen, but it requires a level of success that I also am aware of the level of work that requires to get there, and also a bit of luck, but it's definitely daunting and it's terrifying and all the things, but much like everything else in my life, and like, if I look at future Travis, if I don't at least try, I'll regret for the rest of my life. If I don't at least put my best foot forward. And it's hard because I'm very much like, oh, now that I'm doing this, I'm not going to be doing stunts as much. And I know that. And my income is going to take a hit. My reputation is going to take a hit. Like all these things are going to, like, it's going to happen. And I'm aware of it. But I'd rather die on my shield than cower behind the line. You know what I mean?
I absolutely do.
Yeah. So,
dude, that's amazing. Really well said, man. Really well said. Yeah, it's it's such a journey. It's such a journey, right?
It is tough. And like, so when you started acting and then you were doing comedy. Because I know I saw you do your improv, which was amazing. I've still to this day, like some of my favorite like comedic things that I've seen are stuff that you guys have done. I was like, it's so good. It was so good.
Oh, thank you, brother. Thank you.
Yeah, man. So like as you're going through this, so what was your path? And then what are the things that scare you the most about what's in front of you?
Oh, great question. So yeah, I moved to LA when I was 21 in 2008. Probably similar time as you, the crash and the strike and all that. I didn't know anything, but I mean, literally, I didn't know anybody. Just my roommate. He came. Who was in the improv team, Harris. Amazing guy. Still know him to this day. I just knew I'd work really hard.
Yeah.
And so we found a school. Kind of leapfrog in the first 6 months. Then I found this school called Playhouse West in North Hollywood, and I just became obsessed. Like in the way the class was set up, you get 2 classes a week, but whatever level you're at, beginner, intermediate, or advanced, you could audit the rest of those classes at the school for free, which there
Oh.
were plenty. So you could do any beginning. And if you're an intermediate, you can do any beginning and intermediate. And what would happen, it was a very actionable class, meaning it wasn't always scene work. Sometimes it was like particularizations or exercises that you could just show up and do if you were competent enough.
Uh-huh.
And so you could get a lot of work in. And the typical student would go for like 3 hours a day. Some days I was doing 12 hours of class.
Wow.
And just like, I didn't know I felt like I was talented, if I'm being honest, but
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I just was like, I know I can work hard.
Yeah.
Because I got really lucky. Holly Gagne, my first teacher, who worked a ton. That was the other thing. All these teachers had or were working, and not in like casual ways. Like Mark Pellegrino was on it and in the roster of teachers at the time, and he was like the first person I saw become a series regular on 2 shows at the same time.
Whoa.
I was like, God damn! And he was in like Big Lebowski, Mulholland Drive, like just an amazing resource and just a really cool guy. And Holly, back to Holly, but she was like, she did this beautiful little exercising class. She turned to our beginning class and she said, how many of you played sports in high school? And let's say 75% of the class raised their hand. And she's like popcorning around, like, how many hours a week did you practice and play? And it was like, oh, God, like 15, 20 hours. And she's like, 20, 15, 22, right? All right, put your hands down. Now raise your hands if you played in college. And like 3 people raised their hands, me, my buddy, and one other guy. And she's like, similar question, right? And we answered. And she goes, okay, now did anybody plan to go pro in those? And no one raised their hand on this third question. And so she just turned to us and goes, you expect to go pro in acting, only working out 6 hours a week?
Wow.
And that's how she started class. And I never forgot it.
Never forgot it. You know what's really funny is that I had a very like with comedy. So, because I'd been writing for years, and one day, like almost a year ago now, I said to myself, I was like, when you were training to become a stuntman, you were at the gym every day for hours, and you didn't even think about it. You just did it. You just showed up every day, no questions asked. If you want to do comedy and you want it to be real, if you don't put in that same amount of effort, then you don't want it. And so I said, I found this place called the Fourth Wall. It's in NoHo. It's great because it's slotted. So you sign up online. You know exactly when you're going. It's hour.
Love that.
Yeah, and it's in hour chunks. So so from like 4 to 5, you go in. You know you're going to get 5 minutes, and then you're there for an hour, and then you can plan your day around doing sets. Yeah. So I was like, you know this resource exists. If you cannot do open mics every single day, you do not want it bad enough, and you need to give up because you're wasting energy.
Good for you.
You're wasting time. You're wasting energy. I was like, you have to figure out what you want. Is this it or not? And so I went every single day for like 3 weeks, and then I left for London for 7 months on a job. I came back and been doing it. I did it again every day. And then I had my first paid show like a couple months in, and it was one of the most exhilarating moments. And I knew, I was like, this is it.
Congrats, brother.
I like know. And man, there's nothing like I have more fun with than coming up with material and figuring it out. I'm still working on my onstage because it's different. Like when the camera's rolling, if that's home now, but being on stage with a mic is very different. So I'm learning what I've discovered is I'm learning how to relax. I'm a friend of mine. His name's Logic. He's a rapper. You may have heard of him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Amazing
so
artist. I love Logic.
He's one of the coolest. We met just before COVID.
He seems it. He seems it.
Yeah. Then we gamed all throughout COVID, and we're very similar, and we're very open and vulnerable, and we want to be that way with our friends. And so we instantly vibed with like, hey man, this is a safe space, and like, and so he's one of those guys who I was like, you're the type of person that is the friend that I wanted and want to be. And so I'm grateful for it. But we were talking, and because I'd asked him, I was like, do you believe in the 10,000 hours rule, right? You do something for 10,000 hours and you're a master. And when I think about what it means to be a master, I'm like, what does that really mean? And to me, it's you are out of your own head and you are just relaxed. I watch him on stage every night, and he is like, there's not he's just like, he's him. There's no am I going to say the right word or do the right thing, or is this going to be in the right order? There's none of that. And it's because he's fully relaxed. Like when I'm relaxed around my friends, I'm a genius. I feel it and I know it. And when I'm home and I'm coming up with jokes on my own, the inner voice, like the one in the back of my mind that's fully relaxed, is a gangster, right? Yeah. But when I get on stage, it's not there yet. I'm not there yet. So I realized that 10,000 hours, it takes you 10,000 hours to relax is what I've come to realize. And so every time I perform now, I'm focusing on relaxing more than anything else. Whether my material hits well, whether people laugh, like all that is great because you have to, know if your material works. You have to learn all that. But ultimately, I need to be up there because, it's like when you're on a date and you're relaxed. Like you're probably like me. You probably don't get nervous for dates anymore. Like if you go on, you're just like, you're like, it's gonna go great. Like right?
Or I leave, it's all good.
Right? It's whatever because you're fully relaxed and there's no stakes. You're just like, whatever. That is what I need. I know that I need on stage, and so I'm like now focusing on how to make sure that I am improving in that realm as well. So and some of that does come with just doing the material over and over again until it's like I know this material like the back of my hand. There's a lot of that involved, but yeah, man, 10,000 hours to relax is a thing that I've learned.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like it's the same for acting and probably anything high level is like the more preparation for me, like, when people are complimentary about my performance, it's because I prepared really well on top of the underlying river and foundation of preparation that I'm always doing. Like last year, I'm a bit of a psycho. Like I was laughing with my buddy yesterday. I was like, dude, like, I don't know anybody who does this, but because this will tie in. You asked me what my path was, which is basically.
Oh yeah, that's right. I cut you off. Yeah.
No, dude, I'll get it. It's a conversation. I got a really fortunate but brutal meeting. My first year, I had a meeting with this manager, and he just looked at me, and he literally was like, basically, I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, "You're too fat. You're too white. You're too old. You're too," and I was just like, "Oh shit, I'm 21. Like I'm too old." And I just realized like no one's gonna give it to you. No. And so when I went to the Playhouse West, I was very fortunate in that I met a group of like minds because I've heard, it was one thing for me to learn. Like I just assumed because I was doing it, everybody was doing it. But what I've learned about this group is it hasn't really come around since, and it was a while since it had happened. So it was like pretty special. But basically there was 10 of us who formed the improv group and made over 100 sketches. I learned how to write, edit, be in a writer's room, be in a production meeting, be in these very low stakes, obviously. But we did it consistently for 3.5 years. We met every fucking Wednesday. And that really spurred me on. And since then, I've gotten into writing a lot. like I write a lot, and so I relate to you with writing material because people, I used to beat myself up like, if you're not in front of the fucking, that's not writing. But no, actually most of my writing is out and walking. If I'm get stuck mentally, I get moving physically. And so like a lot of my world is out there in the ether, and I've
Yeah.
learned over the years to relax on myself. Like
Yeah.
sometimes I won't write for 6 months because I'm actually producing or directing, and I'm just like, that's okay, that's the trade. Whereas 26-year-old me would have been like, gotta fucking do it all. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, no, we got to do it all well. And so like part of the exercise I was bringing up at the beginning of this point was last year, some of the notes I'd been getting at the studio level and the agency level were like, fucking great storylines, great action, characters need work. That's how I interpreted it, which is the hard part,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
People, telling people authentically and uniquely.
Yeah.
Because as Marlon Brando said, bottom line, you got to be entertaining. So if the best actor of all time is still aware that you got to fucking entertain, then I'm going to be aware too. Like you said, listen to the people before us. But
Yeah.
last year I spent 11 months, because it clicked in December, actively just working on character and writing by myself in the sad darkness of not being good at something. It sucked. I hated it.
Yeah.
It was like my foe. And then like 11 months later it clicked, and now my writing's at another level.
Oh,
And
wow.
so yeah, it's just been like this kind of interesting thing. So those things scare me, to answer a further back question.
Yeah.
Doing extra, like working on my perceived weaknesses. And then I'm working on a few projects right now. Like I showed you Helmet, the 1970
Yeah. That was cool.
thing I made, and that's a TV pilot pitch. That's the sales apparatus for it. And we're getting some real interesting meetings outside of Hollywood, which is where I'm aiming to be anyways. Like I want to like start somewhere else with someone else's money and just like kind of untangle myself. And I'm have the option because I have 2 features. This is all strikes depending and all that shit. But I'm not worried about that. I'm going to look at it like I looked at COVID, which is, this is happening for me, not to me. And at the end of this, it's going to be the best shit that ever happened to me. So yeah, I got those projects, and they're scary. Like one of them Shakespearean and intensity, and I'm the lead actor, and I kill my father, and I'm like, God, if there's a high wire active, and when things are that Shakespearean, they can be melodramatic. So that's what scares me about it, is like, I've never done this type of material as a actor. Like, where am I going to find the real me? But I want to be scared. I always try and do projects that are going to elevate me slightly. I don't necessarily want to jump 60%. But if I take 5%, 1%, that's amazing. And I try and hire performers the same way.
That's that old saying, to get something you've never had, you have to do something you've never done.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
So, which is oftentimes, and fear exists, a majority of fear exists in the unknown. So like, I totally get it. Yeah. Like I totally get that fear of like, I'm doing this thing and I don't know. And you said it earlier. It's the like, I don't know if I'm good. I don't know if I'm funny. I don't know. I think I am.
Yeah.
Right. I make me laugh. But I also, it's like, I also know I'm a huge fucking nerd. Like I watch videos on YouTube, and it's like these like super like science guys. They're making these very nerdy science jokes, and I'm dying. Yeah. But then when I look at them objectively, I'm like, this is ridiculous. But like,
But dude, I read. I try to be a historian of my craft, and so that means I'm reading about what other people said, and Chris Nolan, Denny, like they are like, dude, your only audience is you. And I realized for a long time I haven't truthfully, in my heart of hearts, been adhering to that. And I'm sure that's aspirational for them too. I'm not going to pretend they're gods, but
of course,
I think that's a nice thing to aim for. Like if I like that's what I've been learning business wise. Like we only need a market of 1 million people, which is less than a percentage of the United States alone, let alone the world. And 1 million people makes me a very happy artist.
Yeah.
100,000 would. So it's like I like some of these numbers were like not aware of the reality. They actually like there's 400 million people supposedly in the U.S. alone.
Yeah.
That's so many people.
Those numbers. You're right. Those numbers are definitely outside of the realm of art because we don't encounter 1 million of anything.
No,
in our day to day.
No, the biggest show right now, it's on the Nielsen rating. It's like NCIS. You know, it's so funny when you really break it down. The top 20 shows are shows that are not popular, but they're like, it's 20 million people watch it. And that's the highest. That's 5% of our country. Like it's like nothing, and I'm not even including the world because those numbers just I can't do the percentages.
Oh yeah,
but
it's 8 billion people in the world.
Yeah,
no,
so
impossible.
That helps. That's been helping me lately to be like, dude, you don't need as many as you think. You don't need to be CBS. I just need to galvanize the people who fuck with me, and I've also realized that too. If I get successful on a false foundation of myself, then I have to work my whole life to keep that false foundation of self.
Yeah.
Or else the people are like, what'd you do? What'd you sell me on?
Man, fucking preach right now. Yeah, like you saying that, I'm thinking about, my comedy and whatnot. And like when you said that, this thought popped into my mind. If I could be good enough that all my friends would want to come watch me perform and that's it, I would be happy. If I only had my friends coming to watch me, but they loved watching me so much that they would come to all of my shows, I'd be happy. I would be very happy with that.
Yeah. Dude, it's so true. It's a great point you bring up because I learned this firsthand. So I had a movie release that a 5-year baby, like, dude, emotional ties to my family. Like I co-wrote it, co-produced, was the lead of it. And it released in January, and I was watching it over Christmas break with my family. And I was like, all of a sudden, everything coalesced. Like my childhood, the desire to be seen, all these things. Like, I'm like, oh, the child did the thing to be seen and is now in the opportunity to be seen by his parents. And I realized it meant more than anything else, anybody else watching it, which I'm grateful for everybody who supports. But I just realized sitting there with my sister and my mom, I was like, whoa, this means something different. Like this actually matters in my day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think of when you talk about your friends, because it is sort of true. It's like if I can make my homies laugh, like who gives a shit? I'm not trying to make random Redditor 2 laugh.
Yeah, because no matter what you do, some people are going to hate it and some people are going to love it.
Art matter. Should be polarizing, as the great Rick Rubin says.
It does. It does not matter, and those who try to please everyone please no one.
Yeah, no, man. I think we're in an interesting time in the industry. I think it's flipping on its head, but this is the time that outlaws and pirates become lords and kings and queens and all that.
I like that. This is the time when outlaws and pirates become kings and queens. I fucking love that. That's amazing. My a guy that I've worked for a lot. He's a director now, but his name's JJ. Yeah. He directed Day Shift. He's directing a movie with Dave Bautista right now.
Amazing.
He's from Texas. He's just one of
I love Texans.
Right? And he's also one of the dudes, like he served in the military. And he's seen active duty combat. Like he went in Panama to get Noriega out back in the day. Like it was, So, but his attitude, he has this like, I've taken life and I've made life, and like so he has this just very laid back, like I just want to be me, But his corporation, like his like logo is an outlaw. Like he is and like that's his whole persona, that he's an outlaw. And then now he's a director. So like he's like the epitome of the thing that you just said. So that's why when you said that, I instantly was like, oh my God, you're absolutely right. Like the outlaws I fucking love that.
Dude. I love it too, because that's how I feel, That's how I feel. I feel like,
Especially, no, go ahead. Sorry, I haven't been.
Yeah, I just feel it in my blood. That's all.
Yeah, and it's especially because those who were making the rules before got so corrupt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we wouldn't be outlaws if things weren't so fucked up.
No, come on,
Right?
like just to break this open for a second, like no one has ever been able to explain to me cogently the Netflix business model because it doesn't aspire for great content. They just need your, and this is not a knock on Netflix necessarily. This is the industry. It's
Yeah.
like they just need your sub. They just need your subscription.
No.
And so it doesn't matter as long as they have blank faced shit on there. It doesn't, dude. I swear we're gonna see the return of cinema, and it's gonna be not. It's not gonna. My theory is this. Again, historian, I try. Opera used to be the shit, number one in the world for our storytelling. Broadway, same shit. It's not. It's just not. Sorry, but it's never been more higher paying. Probably, I would argue. Like, I imagine there's some opera singers making millions. Same on Broadway, obviously. It's never been more world renowned, more toured, more seen, but it's not number one. And so I feel like movies are going to slide down there if they haven't already, because social media numbers are insane, supposedly. And so it's just like it's going to return to the 90s as far as production numbers. Like, there'll still be great movies. It just won't be like, I read this article that said, who asked for all this shit? Like, customer wise, and I really thought about it. I was like, oh yeah, no customers were like, we need more content, we need it. It's just like it fit their way to evaluate their company, which gives their shareholders bigger dividends. And that's not a great recipe for art, and it's going to, I mean, it's collapsing.
I will say this in when you say who asked for it, I would argue that we did, but we didn't know that we were asking for it. Once we started signing up and the money started coming.
Fair enough.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, when you look at when you look at what you do know, it's that they just want to make money, and we were giving them money when they were giving. So they were like, well, if we give them more, they'll give us more money, and it's just like thing. So it's like I don't. But we didn't know that. We just
they got us hooked with already made material.
Yeah. Also, it wasn't presented to us.
Yeah.
That they were just like, hey, here's the thing that makes the thing that you do more convenient. That's how it was originally presented to us. Convenience. Yeah. And then they took our convenience and they were like, they love convenience. We can make so much more money.
Yeah.
Let's just keep fucking pumping it.
And no one cancels their subscriptions too. It's like 70%. So like, at the time it was like $6.99 a month. You're like, who cares?
Yeah. But yeah, at Netflix, because they did the thing where they stopped, they were like, oh, you can't account share anymore. And they had an increase in subscribers.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Which is like, but people, the internet was like, fuck that.
Yeah.
Fuck that. Boycott Netflix. Yeah? Are you going to? Or do you really want to watch the next season of Bridgerton? Like, come on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah. 100%. I also think what's happening too, and I think everything, especially like the bigger it gets, it moves slower. Yeah. Like it's a giant, Yeah. And is that they're realizing the social media numbers aren't that effective. Meaning like
they're not.
Like, dude, I had a buddy fundraise. He has like 1 million followers. He got like $12, and he's like a real. But if I think about it, everything was free. Everything is free. Everything is free for years. His followers, and then he's like, "Hey, donate to this movie, not like to a cause, because every charity he did got money, but dude, no one wanted to fork up." And I was like, "Whoa!" That was my first taste of like,
because also like if you're gonna for things like that, it's I think if you're gonna do something like that, people aren't gonna do it just to be like, let's see what you do. If you were like, hey, do you want your name in the credits?
Yeah.
Like you do that, we'll put you in like then people because especially with the economy and like the difference between I make a great living and I can't buy a house in LA. No. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. So people have to make real decisions. Yeah. And when it's a thing that they're unsure of, they're not going to use their real money that they need to use to buy real food.
Yeah.
And you know, like,
absolutely.
So I get it. And yeah, social media numbers definitely don't. But when you have like a history of like a message or something that people feel a part of, then they'll donate. But that's a whole other. That's just not followers. That's just not like look at what I post on Instagram. That takes a whole other. Which is why musicians can monetize their fans in a way that nobody else can. Because musicians like you're touching again, like I was just on tour with Logic, so I was watching him with his fans up close and watching how they feel connected and understood and heard and seen by this guy that they've never met is amazing. And that's why they come to his shows and they buy his merchandise and they do all of that, is because it's more than just here's a song I think you'll like. It is here's a song about a thing that I'm struggling with and I've struggled with, and maybe you struggle too.
Yeah, dude.
Right? And then they hear that there was a mom who spoke about her daughter who's biracial and how she's like, when she's at home, I'm there, but when she's in the world, I can't protect her. You know? And he's like, but your music is there for her. That kind of shit. Like, that's the kind of shit. And you know, it also, like, seeing that, being around him, and also being in places and having friends, and even this conversation of where I'm able to, like, express myself has been informing my comedy in such a way that it's like, I want to be very vulnerable in my comedy and very open about the things that I have struggled with. But also, it's like, but, you know, that's also hard. It's like how, you know, it's like making somebody laugh about my childhood trauma. But when I can talk about it and I can laugh about it with people, it makes it like the weight leaves me.
Yeah, you're sharing the load.
Yeah, and also knowing that you're not alone.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I have a lot.
Yeah, man, the mind is a lonely place.
Yeah. We overuse it like it's the mind is a tool. Like it's like using a hammer to fix your fridge. That's what we're trying to do with our mind. The mind's in the body, which tells me the body's actually the most important thing to nature and experiencing this earth. But I have this Logic story. I was hesitant to share because it's a dark one. But so my dad killed himself from PTSD last year. He was a Navy SEAL for 30 years. And it was a total shock. And luckily I was in therapy and all these things, as I mentioned earlier, and been processing it, obviously. And it's been intense, you know, because I'm a firm believer if like we're souls on this human experience, like that was an experience for the record books.
Yeah.
And so I had been battling with my own suicidal ideation my whole life too, because I realized I had inherited as PTSD. If you think about generational trauma or PTSD, it's not like people think. It's not like my grandmother was a slave, I'm a slave, my dad had PTSD, it's the energy brought into the space is absorbed by the children. So they start picking up the physical cues of said trauma. So it looks different. It's deceptive. Like I didn't go to war.
Yeah.
Like, just so we're clear, I was never in the military, but my dad went on 13 deployments.
Oh my God.
And yeah. And just for context, like 4 is a shit ton.
No, I'm fully aware.
13. No, I know you know.
Oh
but
yeah.
Like,
oh, that's right. We're recording.
Yeah.
I was like, oh no, nigga, that's a
yeah.
13. That's crazy.
Yeah, dude.
Wow.
And, he was incredible. He's an incredible guy. It was incredible. Total shock. And just in dealing with that, I was finally able to articulate like my own ideation. I didn't realize that's what it was, but I got close a few times. And then the last time, I swear to God, I just heard his song and I called the hotline. And
no, really?
Yeah. And it was just, you know, it's such a brief moment that thought of it. But I'm like, I remember when he was doing it, like that song was popular.
Yeah.
It's an amazing song. I just remember being both like in awe and jealous of his courage to open up on such a hot, because I weirdly have known like 9 people to kill themselves. I'm from a very military heavy town, 4 military
Oh,
bases,
yeah,
and like, and then after my dad died, all the family secrets come out, like, oh, we had 3 suicides in the family, so it's like, oh, we're healing all this trauma now.
yeah.
And so, yeah, I just, it's a random ass connection, but it is very
No, but
powerful,
it's
obviously.
super powerful. But that's like, you know, that encapsulates just like all the things that we've been saying. Is like when you do things that like come from like here,
Yeah.
it affects people, and it's
Yeah.
important. And that is, I think, and that's the thing that cinema has begun, or not begun, but like it's definitely losing,
Mm-hmm.
and like, and
Mm-hmm.
with Netflix and all these things, and they're so focused on dollars, and you've heard it in the past, but it
Yeah.
feels like it's exponentially, like, you know what I mean?
Gross.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like where we are
Yeah.
now in that.
Yeah.
So
Dude,
that,
Logic's video with Chris D'Elia, he and Eminem, when
oh yeah, oh
D'Elia does
yeah,
Eminem,
yeah,
like, D'Elia's one of my favorite stand-ups. That guy fucking,
yeah.
I
He's
love, I love that guy.
so, yeah.
As
So
far as his comedy, I
yeah, I
don't
was
know
gonna
him
say
personally.
it's
Yeah,
a shame
yeah,
that man, it's
yeah,
like those things. I'm just like, man, just gotta be so like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
intentional or not, you gotta, once you get to a certain, like, I'm like, I'm like W level famous, right?
mm-hmm.
Like I'm not very, but like
Mm-hmm.
I'm more like, people have seen me on TV, and
Yeah,
even I am like wary of the world and like the people that I talk to and everything, because
yeah,
and I have nothing in like in the grand scheme of it, and
yeah.
yeah, you just gotta, can't let your hubris win the day.
Yeah, and it's also, not even about him specifically, but just like my stuff. It's like addiction plus history plus
Yeah,
this. Like, there, like Hollywood likes to, like, it's so funny, dude. Like, this is part of the reason I'm sickened with it on some level. It's like, I remember a few years ago, and I like agree with you about the Oscars, but like 10x, because I have buddies who worked in the studio system are like, it's bought and paid for, like, honestly,
yeah,
and it's like, I don't know if you remember last year, people got in a tiff because an indie movies actress got a Best Actress nom, and it's like the literal articles are like, they never paid for the. It's like, yeah, it's a fucking indie movie, and she was incredible. Like, isn't
yeah,
that the point?
yeah.
But anyway, a few years ago, they banned guns. There was like this big Hollywood fucking protest at the
Yeah.
Oscars. And I remember driving through traffic, because you know how
Oh,
Hollywood gets closed down for it. And now I'm on Highland, and I look up, and there, ironically, touching back to the beginning of the pod, there's a 150-foot poster of a guy shooting a 50 cal with blood on his face for the Purge Anarchy. And I'm like, oh yeah, Hollywood's really against guns,
yeah.
like, because if they were, then there wouldn't be guns in movies.
There wouldn't be good. Speaking of which, this was a weird moment for me. So I went and watched the most recent John Wick,
Yeah, I've
which
seen it
is
too.
yeah, which the John Wick movies are cool. They're just cool fucking, like, it's just
Yeah.
really cool. But when I watched it, it had been after I'd been doing comedy for a while, and like I said before, I've been really getting in touch with me doing
Mm-hmm.
comedy, and like really analyzing myself, how I view the world, how I view people. And I was just in the space of, because at my core, like in my like heart of hearts, I'm a very sensitive person. The world has is such that I've had to push that away and not
Yeah.
allow that to come out, because the world doesn't take kindly to people who are too sensitive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just doesn't. But in doing this work, that part of me has started to come out more, which I'm enjoying. And now that I've also had the years of not that, I can like kind of maneuver it better within the world.
Yeah.
However, I remember when I was watching John Wick 4, and he was just like killing a bunch of people. I was like, man, those people have families. Like,
Uh-huh.
he's
100%.
just, I was like, we are just watching this dude just murder guards. They're henchmen.
Yeah.
They didn't do anything.
Yeah.
They just accepted a job. This motherfucker could have been working at Home Depot the day before. And then, like, you don't know any of these. We assume they're bad guys, but the whole movie, I remember feeling so bad for everyone that was getting murdered. And
Dude, it's so true.
I was like, because I went and I rewatched the first one, and I was like, I didn't feel that in the first one. And because I'm rewatching it, I don't feel it because I remember that, like, oh no, it's just cool. But for some reason,
Well, the further they got, I mean, there's two things happening. You're right, 100%. I was literally thinking about this and writing jokes about it 2 days ago, like with the Avengers. I'm like, those motherfuckers have killed 1 billion people.
Bro,
like,
they've murdered so many.
Splatted them, like just absolutely splatted them.
Just when they,
like
the
Hulk. The Hulk doesn't give a fuck about what you're doing.
The opening scene in Civil War where they're going through the woods and Captain America throws a motorcycle at a dude. I'm like, you just murdered.
Yeah. He's dead. Kyle and I will always turn to each other and be like, dead, right? Like, absolutely dead. And the issue with sequels on some level is they can almost never, the ones that do kill, because they're usually better premises, but they'll miss the heart. And so, the fourth one, like, his dog doesn't die. So it's like, we're not as in. We love Keanu, and he's cool, but
you're dumped into it in the middle of it. Whereas in the beginning, you're like, oh no, they stole your car, beat you up, killed your dog, burned your house down. Kill whoever you want. That's a really good point. But by the fourth one, because I remember at the end of it, I forgot. I was like, oh yeah, he had a wife. I forgot.
100%.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Right on, brother. Well, where are you performing these days as we wrap it up right now?
So right now, at the Fourth Wall, there's Fourth
in
Wall
North Hollywood.
Yeah, so there's the Fourth Wall Cafe in Hollywood is where I perform.
Cool.
I'll do open mics at the one in NoHo, but that's like a black box with like me and like 7 comedians. Yeah. But right now I'm at the point of just building I'm building a stream of material. So then
you're working it out.
Yeah. So then when I like erupt onto the scene, it's like
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I'll have your Instagram and the stuff below. But before I go, I just want to shower you with a little love, dude. I fucking appreciate you. Every time I've spent time with you, you've been just such a solid person. Like, I feel comfortable, safe, and free to be me around you, which I don't think there's a bigger compliment. And all your professional accolades are very cool, but that is not why I love you, bro. And so thank you for your time spent today. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Yeah, dude, I love this. Anytime you just hit me up, man.
Sweet. I'm going to stop it, and then we can say a quick goodbye.
All right.
Are you a creative who wants to take control of your career? Are you someone who wants to be creative but doesn't know where to start? Then this course is for you. This course teaches you how to make your own film. And in my experience, that's the best way to get noticed in Hollywood. And that's the best way to control your own career, aka your life. If you want to have an enjoyable life, yet be creative and creatively fulfilled, then you're going to have to make your own projects, and you get to make them. And this course is going to teach you just how to do that. And this course is on feature films, but you can scale that down all the way to music videos or short films. And the way this course goes is I teach you in short, punchy classes, podcast style, so you can just listen and take notes. I also do Loom commentaries where I'm watching my own films and telling you exactly how I accomplished each scene. And I laugh a ton because, we're looking at 14 years of work, and there's a lot of mistakes and a lot of growth and a lot of information in there. And lastly, you get to do an AMA and Ask Me Anything with me once a week, and you'll get your questions answered. And if you're in the middle of production, I can help you with that. If you're in pre-production, I can help you with that. If you don't know what the hell's going on, I can help you with that. So again, if you're a creative who wants to take control of their life, have a good career, then this course is for you. I hope I get to see you guys in the Rebel Filmmaking Community. I had such a blast making it, and I can't wait to share everything I learned over the last 15 years. I'm Sean. Thank you, guys.